Hi, welcome to my craft room. Carol Gatton, your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and today we're making an angle cut card. I'm using Costa Cabana. This panel measures 5 1/4 by 4. We are using Stampin' Up's grid paper, and if you don't have it, why not? It's wonderful. I am using this center line and darkening that with a pencil. And then I have already been playing around with this, and I liked 3 1/2, so I'm measuring up from that base line and making a little mark. Now I need to line this up perfectly straight so I can work on my left side. Now these little boxes, each one are 1/4 inch, so I'm counting up 6. I need 1 3/8, so I'm going to put in the middle of that 6th box. Now just match those two up, and I'm making a little pencil mark. You could go all the way across your paper, but once you get it onto your trimmer, you don't really need that. So mark that, take it to your trimmer, highest point at the top, and get it right where that blade will be cutting. I'll show you here. So there's where that's going to be going in there. And now we are ready to trim it out. The bottom portion we're going to set aside, and the top portion we're going to be taking off 13/16. And you're going, oh no, don't use those numbers. Actually, it is only 3/4 plus 1/16 more, if that makes it easier for you. And this part we'll just remove. We won't be using this any longer. And these two portions here are our panels for the top of our card. Now while I have my trimmer out, I'm going to go ahead and take the Best Year Ever Designer Series paper, and I'm going to cut just a real narrow little strip of this for a decorative element at the end. So there's where it cuts, and I'm going to go right to that little indentation just above where it cuts. I should have measured this to see what the distance is, but I hope everyone's following what I'm saying. Look how tiny this strip is. I've already made one card, so I've already cut away a portion of this. There is 1/2 inch from the cut edge up to the leaves on the multicolored tulips. The tulips are slightly staggered, so the Costa Cabana tulips are just a little bit higher than the yellow and the Calypso coral. So get your ruler so you can see right where the tip of those Costa Cabana tulips are, and then turn your ruler over, and now the tips should be 1/2 inch in from the edge of that ruler, and that gives you that space to glue that on. So now, because of the angle of this, it doesn't want to fit into my trimmer too well, so we can cut it out, and it doesn't even matter if it's nice and straight because you're going to be covering that up. Okay, next, make sure you erase any pencil marks that you might have on your cardstock. You don't want that showing. Okay, and now I am ready to bring in my embossing folder, and this is the tiny triangles. I really like this for this particular card, and I've got it right at the line, and then I'm just going to move it up just a titch. Can you see that? And then I will bring the bottom portion in flush with that so that it all lines up. I've got my multi-purpose plate on. I'm on tab 1, and this will go through kind of tight, but I really like the look better. It really is raised up, and that's what I like. Let me show you just how pretty this looks. Okay, so now next thing we're going to do is we're going to just put this back on our grid paper, making sure that that's nice and lined up. And now I'm bringing in my snail, and I'm putting down just a couple of little pieces, and I want to get rid of most of that tackiness. I want it to just hold, because I'm going to bring in my Best Year Ever Designer Series paper, and I'm going to line that up, and I'm paying attention to where this is going to be lining up on my edge on the right, and where it's lining up with my tulip on the left. And also it's lining up with the base of those colored leaves, but not lining up with the different colored tulips, but not the Costa Cabana. This is the top one lines up with the Costa Cabana. It's a little bit higher. So we have a 1/2 inch to play with here. So when you're putting your adhesive down, make sure you think about that. You don't want it to be way over that, or it's going to stick to this grid paper. Okay, match that all back up again. Pretty simple here what we're doing. Have you noticed I'm not stamping? Wow, that's a rarity for me. Okay, and now we'll do the top portion. I did try to get a verse onto this, and I just felt like it was taking away from the card instead of adding to it. And that's things we want to think about. Does it really make my card look better, or do I need to eliminate that? And I tried stamping a couple of verses and putting on there, and I didn't care for it. So I have come up with a different idea. Okay, you can see that I have that top lined up also with that line, and the top portion is all lined up straight. Now I like to keep my dazzling diamonds in a tray. I cover it with saran wrap when I'm not working with it, and then that way I can just put my fingers right in it. It's right there ready to use all the time. I am a big glitter girl, can you tell? Now a lot of this is going to fall off when we tap it, but there will be static cling that's going to cause glitter to stay on that, just like it stays on your face when you don't want it to, or on your clothing. Start it halfway up and then turn your paper over and cut into where you previously cut. Repeat that, and this, believe me, works a lot better than trying to just go all the way at once. You seem to, for some reason, cut into your cardstock. At least I did. Crystal Effects, oh, one of my favorite products. I've been using it, I think, ever since Stampin' Up! Came out with it. And I wish I could remember how long that's been, but I'm thinking at least 15 years. That's just a guess. But I love working with it. It's a beautiful, glossy, high lacquer finish, and it hardens to a really great finish that will stay. Now when you tip this bottle over, it begins to flow out. So you just want to be very careful that you don't let too much come. You're not going to be able to get right into some of these little points. So I like using my paper piercing tool. I tell you, this thing doubles for everything with me. And then just take it and just take your time. As you can see, I'm taking my time and moving into those crevices. I'm not hurrying this. And I personally do not like working over an area that I've just had Crystal Effects on, so I'm flipping this around. Always clean off the tip of that paper piercing tool before you do another flower. There becomes a buildup on there, and it defeats the purpose for having that sharp point. Okay, so we're just repeating that again, and you can do both buds at the same time, and then just work it around. Now I've speeded this up a little bit. I didn't want y'all to fall asleep as I get my Crystal Effects on. Okay, it's just that easy. Now we'll finish up with this one. And whoopsie, I had a little bit of overflow, and so it's kind of divided. It's kind of made my two tulips come together. Now what I've done is set that aside to dry, and that's going to take a little while. So I would say at least an hour. This is our scallop border punch, and I am matching that up, and see where there is half of a scallop. Okay, now you see it. Okay, bring it back in and bring in one tulip to where you're only seeing half of it, and then that way you will get that lined up every time. Okay, there's my half. Now I'm seeing half of the finished tulip, and that'll do it. I don't need all of this. And the thing that worked out so perfectly is I went into the dip for the scallops on the two cut edges of my cardstock, so I'm real happy about that. Let me point out to you what I'm saying right here, and I'm going a little bit, just a hair over what the edge of that paper is, because that's where I'll be cutting. I want to cut away the pencil so it doesn't show. And I do not want this smaller than my paper. So there we go. And as you can tell, there's a little change in my tulips because I had this one drying before I started, and it's all nice and dry now. So I traded my card base just so I could keep working. We want to put this on here to figure out where to cut this off at and go beyond your scalloped border. You can always cut off the excess, but boy, if you cut it too short, then you got to redo the whole thing. I always lean a little bit on the cautious side. And did you notice I use crystal effects to adhere this on? It gives such a nice even flow, and excuse my head in the camera, it gives such a nice even flow, and I really like the effect. Okay, there we go. Now we got to sparkle it up again. So after we finish with this mat, we'll just take it to the kitchen sink and a little dish soap, and that'll all come right off. Okay, now I am going to snip on each side to get that excess. Whoopsie. And now this side. And I'm ready to line it up onto my card. I went down that side. Now I'll do the same thing on here so that it really adheres to the base of this panel. Now when you go to line this up, hold it upward while you connect the one part, and then it'll be real easy to just connect the second. Gently tap that. And now I'm using the multi-purpose glue. I'm using the broad tip to put my panel onto the base card. I really like using the multi-purpose glue when I'm doing something like this because of the fact that it gives me a little wiggle space, because you want this nice and even, as you know, and sometimes if that drip tape, if it catches a hold of it, then there's no turning back. It's caught. Okay, here's a little glimpse of the crystal effect. I just want to thank you until next time, and be sure and go over to my blog, Stamp Queen 101, and there you're going to see more information on creating this card, and hopefully by then I'll have the inside decorated as well, and I'll have a picture of that up for you. Thank you. I love your comments, so make sure you leave me one.